Welcome to the 1980s. Now pay attention and drop that disco ball, cause things are gonna get heated here very early on. And I think I know what you're waiting to see in the shaggy decade. But let's not spoil the fun and pounce right in. Full Moon High, 1981. Well, another Teen Wolf type situation, but somewhat lacking in much of actual wolf here. A soft start for the decade, but I have hope. An American Werewolf in London, 1981. What many of you have been waiting for, and rightfully so. Finally we have a full-fledged werewolf. Werewolf, not wolfman. Not only is it terrifyingly grisly and barely features any humanity to it, it is actually the first werewolf to this point that is a quadruped altered version of a werewolf, rather than just a wolf. And he is big. Brought to life by monster creator Master Rick Baker, this construction set a new standard that to this day is a challenge to match. This is it. And a quick moment for an honorable mention in Mr. Baker's case. It is another of his creations in Michael Jackson's music video, Thriller of 1983, where MJ himself turns into a werecat or werepanther.
Thank you, Master Baker.
Retorno del Hombre Lobo, or Night of the Werewolf, 1981. Paul Nash returns as the werewolf once again. Surprise. What's new? Some different tones in fur? Its coverage? Not enough for the roaring 80s, that's for sure. Sonidoro, 1981. If you thought the previous werewolf was unimpressive, you may consider this one simply unacceptable. Although this essentially is not a werewolf movie, and his presence is short, whereas in the previous films it wasn't. The Howling, 1981. And here is the other, or main, wolfie you may have been waiting for. The werewolves here are gorgeous. Upright, standing monstrosities, complete with digitigrade legs. The humanoid hybrid beast is finally here with long fur, ears, claws, and canines. Humanity temporarily absent. The design and proportions may not be perfect, but looking back at how far we've come, one must offer the Howling a bow and howl in reverence. Well done, monster creator Rob Bottin, and we cannot continue without shouting out this novel-based movie's usage of early CGI techniques. The Monster Club, 1981. Is this some kind of joke? Well, actually this movie wasn't meant to be taken very seriously, but the Wolfman makeup here is subpar for the decade. Though on the other hand, at least he has some character.
To any monster club!
The Munsters Revenge, 1981. Here we not only have Eddie Munster, but this Wolfman, representing our furred friends. The guest Wolfman is nothing special and Eddie looks, well, alright. Being more grayed out suits him well. WOLFEN, 1981. It hasn't been long since the werewolf has been portrayed in full wolf form, so here we are again. This movie can easily be regarded as not a werewolf movie. But in any case, I would say the wolves, or supposed wolves, appear the wolfiest yet when comparing to all previous canine actors and actresses. Buenas noches, Señor Monstro, 1982. Actually, for what the movie is, the Wolfman is very clean and a good representation of the previous decade's creations. While decent, it is not evocative of anything new. Cazador de Demonios, or Demon Hunter, 1983. Technically not a werewolf, but a Nahual, which is a shapeshifter of Mesoamerican folklore that has the ability to change beyond the form of human, often into forms of animals. Therefore, the similarities, especially with this form, are justified enough to have this beastie featured here. Impressive design? Certainly not, but the monster isn't shown in enough clarity to ruin its moments. La Bestia y la Espada Mágica, or The Beast and the Magic Sword, 1983. A werewolf in ancient Japan. What an idea! The protruding brow ridges and extra fur add a little to his individuality among others like him that we've seen, but aesthetically all in all just another wolfman at this point. CONQUEST, 1983. Among some humanoid wolfy beasties, we also have a full wolf form werewolf here as well, as usual utilizing an actual animal. The monster effects are hardly believable and the facial articulation poor. KAOS, 1984. A husband acts like a werewolf. How many women must have dealt with that? For better or for worse? Anyhow, another case of clinical lycanthropy, so no thrilling visuals here. LEVIATAN, or Monster Dog, 1984. Featuring rock star Alice Cooper, the werewolf is barely visible for as low budget as the design is. It's certainly a pro for the scene. She, 1984. Humans with fangs. Nothing to get excited about. Tales of the Third Dimension, 1984. It seems we have another one of those full canine werewolves here whose appearances are limited to a shadow silhouette and some quick practical effect shots of the face, back, and of the especially pathetic paws. At least they took the effort to go special effect rather than dog actor. The Company of Wolves, 1984. And here we have just that, wolves. Full wolf werewolf forms. But the gem here that is rarely mentioned among other 80s werewolf movie greats are the transformation scenes. Not bad at all. Hard Rock Zombies, 1985. Is that a wig? Is it supposed to be wearing a wig? Well, anyway, a skunky style wolfman. I like the color scheme and that's mostly it. Actually, if this guy could have arrived 20 years earlier, that would have been quite awesome. Howling 2, Your Sister's a Werewolf, 1985. Unfortunately, Howling 2 has some satisfactory werewolves and some that are very subpar. A sad, bad movie continuation, but at least it doesn't take itself seriously, and that just may be the best thing about it. Kyuketsuki Hanta D, or Vampire Hunter D, 1985. For monster lovers out there are some excellent scenes in this anime, and that said, the werewolf is glorious with the fat negative of having a very, very short screen time. But he's totally big and bad to the bone. LADYHAWKE, 1985. And another werewolf movie featuring the full wolf form with real canine actors. Silver Bullet, 1985. A great werewolf film with a werewolf whose features may be comparable to a bear's or werebear's, but all in all, the conception is fine if not good or even great, and with an almost adequately satisfying amount of screen time. Teen Wolf, 1985. Finally, the concept done right again. It's been a while. A wolf boy and man that are clean, aesthetically pleasing yet horror-less, created with evident quality. What do you Monsterites think of Werewolf Daddy?
An explanation is probably long overdue.
The Adventures of a 2-Minute Werewolf, 1985. For what one would expect, the practical effects on Wolf Boy here are really not bad. The design or aesthetics of it are not my cup of blood, but it sure appears as though a good amount of effort went into it. I'd say an improved approach would yield an actual Wolf Boy rather than this more aged wolfy representation of him. 2 minutes as a werewolf. That could be interesting. The Midnight Hour, 1985. A full furred bodysuit and passable facial makeup. Well, actually, that face isn't terrible at all. Although was keeping his shoes on while in full transformed form really the best choice? Transylvania 5000, 1985. Appearing to be an even more furred version of Teen Wolf, but so much so that the character seems to get lost within. Looking like, but being unlike Chewbacca due to overall quality, I think some mouth and lip practical effects would have helped to complete this ensemble. Dead Time Stories, 1986. A wolfman with an apish sort of facial fur layout, and somewhat full-bodied practical effects with clothing intact. Haunted Honeymoon, 1986. A horror comedy featuring a well-groomed, unimposing wolfman. Like if you agree, but leaving the bare exposed skin around the eyes is fine, but it should as a minimum be of slightly different color tone or have sparse or shorter hairs there to help it better blend with the surrounding fur. A Canadian Werewolf in Hollywood, 1987. A short film that features an appealing transformation and what a silhouette teases to be a very nice hulking werewolf, but we never get to see this full form exposed. El Aullido del Diablo, Howl of the Devil, 1987. Surprisingly, the appearance of the Wolfman is very brief here. He's a somewhat rugged one, but absolutely nothing innovative here. Howling 3, 1987. A lot of ridiculousness going on here with maybe one good, not great, design. Oh yeah, and a scene that you may never experience again in movie history. There's a reason why this is also known as Howling 3, The Marsupials. La Croce delle Sette Pietre, or Cross of the Seven Jewels, 1987. This could quite possibly be the worst werewolf or wolfman creation for the decade, and in some respects even beyond that. All in all, this Italian flick isn't to be taken seriously, and so there's no reason to be overly harsh, and so with that, let's move on. Red Riding Hood, 1987. Full wolf werewolf form played once again by an actual canine. I do hope all these animals got a handsome reward for their efforts. Teen Wolf 2, 1987. Teen Wolf also? Well, maybe, but this beastie falls quite short of Michael J. Fox's, and even as a standalone, the work here lacks the quality and character to really help it stand out in this wild decade. Fright Night Part 2, 1988. Appropriate acting and ugly, but appearing under a Fright Night title, that just may not be enough. Fuller bodied would be nice, and not just that, but better face, more articulation, details, just quality. There's a reason why his appearances are so brief. Howling 4, The Original Nightmare, 1988. Alright, Howling Milking, what do you have for us this time? Actually, that looks freaking awesome. Main and only negatives. Obviously, the mobility versatility is very limited, and his screen time presence very short. But that's also how these two can work hand in hand for a more positive overall effect. But for the concept and appearance alone, this truly monstrous werewolf gets an A+ from me. Lone Wolf, 1988. From the brief visuals we get, he's the becoming more and more middle ground between Wolfman and full-fledged werewolf. He's cool looking but lacks a few features that would make him more memorable, and that's about all that really needs to be said here. Scooby-Doo and the Reluctant Werewolf, 1988. Shaggy becomes a werewolf. That's really it. A werewolf Shaggy. No spice, no major loss of control, not even a size difference. And no mistaking it, it's Shaggy as a werewolf. A totally missed animator's opportunity. Waxwork, 1988. The complete stiff job other than the ears is a major negative for this one, as the actual look is pretty sweet, other than that oversized cranium. But come on, even the eyelids are part of the mask and not the actors, and hence they stay squinted the entire time. Howling 5, The Rebirth, 1989. Let's see if the effects can live up to the previous Howlings here. Well, for starters, there is certainly less werewolf content here, and the bits of which we do get a glimpse looks big and powerful, but wait! Did they forget about his legs or planned on not having them filmed? Is this just bad design? This monster seriously needs to do some squats. My Mom's a Werewolf, 1989. I must say, I like the aesthetics of the mask's design, but seriously now, there is no more facial movement present than you could do with a $10 mask. And considering the amount of screen time these beasties get due to the nature of the movie, they are awfully unbelievable. Really unfortunate seeing how much time and good effort was spent throughout the movie to get to this point. Night Shadow, 1989. Virtually the best one could do with a werewolf of this type on a low budget. It has the common flaws among such films, but it does win in being a cool monster and holding some individuality of its own during this real turn point of an era. And that it has been, an era that finally took it to full werewolf, from the four-legged to the proper two, and by proper, I of course mean digitigrade and not mundanely flat-footed as are we. Have you seen that perfect werewolf you desire yet? Or do you think we have yet to see it? Or are you waiting for something particular in the 90s? Let me know and I'll see you there next. Now, in the Werewolves of the 90s, only on World of Monsters, everything monster.